Hello, fellow hackers. My name is Shane, and I'm going to be teaching you how to connect Socket.io to your iOS UiKit app. I'm not sure where you found this video, whether it's from browsing or it's from the article I created. A brief description about the article I created. It's a step-by-step instructions on how to connect Socket.io to your iOS UiKit app. But that was pure theory, and I wanted to create this app, this video, so that you would be able to take that theory you learned from the article and use it in a application. I will be referencing the article throughout the video. You can find it below in the description. And there'll be snippets of code that I'll be copying and pasting throughout this video just to make the video shorter. So I'd highly recommend taking a look at the article and watching the video alongside the article. That being said, the server we're going to be using connecting the socket to is a Node.js server. If you do not understand how I created this or what's happening here, I highly recommend you take a look at the video I have in the description below, and it talks about the back end of this project. And that being said, the application we're going to be creating today is a counter application. Basically, what's going to happen is when I click this button counter right over here, it should display, it should go like 0, 1, 2, 3. So as I click the button, like if it's 2 right now, I click the button, it'll be 3, and it just increments up. But using the technology of sockets, it should show on both devices. And as I click it here, it should update on both devices at the same time. That's the power of sockets, and that's what we're going to be implementing today. That being said, let's actually get started with the code. All I've done with this project is I created a brand new project and um, I added a button and a label. The label to display the number that it's incremented to, and just a button to send it, like to increment it. You can see right over here that the button literally does nothing. I just did all of this to make this video shorter and to get straight to the socket stuff. That being said, let's actually get started with installing the dependencies. So let's do that. So the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go to File. You're going to need to go into Swift Packages, Add Package Dependency. And I'm just copying and pasting this from the article, but you're going to need to get this GitHub repository. Install the latest version. Once that's done, towards the left side, you should see the packages installed. Great. Next thing we need to do is we're going to need to modify the info plist plist file. Let's do that right now. So we're going to create a new thing, and we're going to do app transport security settings. We're going to press enter. Make sure that to click the arrow down because we need to add more stuff in a subcategory. Press the plus button, and we're going to actually need to allow this, and we're going to need to make the boolean set to true. Now that that's all set, we can now go back here. So that's pretty much installing Socket.io, and that's all completed now. Now it's about starting to receive and emit data. One thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create a Singleton class. And you're probably like, what and why? Well, the reason why we need to use a Singleton class is, well, let me explain it as if we didn't use a Singleton class. So right now, if we were to create a socket object in this view controller, and say, for example, you wanted to go from one view controller to another view controller, you wouldn't be able to take that socket object to the next view controller without disconnecting it. And that's a problem. You don't want it to disconnect whenever you're traversing through view controllers. And that is why we need to use a Singleton class. Because a Singleton class will create a static socket object. Thus, when you're traveling from one view controller to another view controller, it won't disconnect. We're going to create the socket handler class. So we're going to create the socket handler class. and it's going to be Swift file. And then I'm just going to grab the following code from the article. And yeah, that's it. This is the important part. This is what your client or your iOS app is connecting, like it's looking for to connect to the server, localhost 3000, and you would change it according to what you're trying to connect to. Apart from that, this is just getting the socket from this class, this is establishing connection, and this is disconnecting. So we can actually get started with the coding now. The first line of code to actually establish a connection is this right over here. And just place this right over here. Once we have that, you only have to write this one time, and this is just used to establish a connection, and you don't have to write this again once you've established a connection. Next thing we're going to do is for every view controller you want to access your socket in, you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to write this line of code right over here. And this grabs the socket, and you can just literally call this any time you need to grab the socket. Now that that's done, every single time the button is executed, we want the server to receive an event called counter. I think that's what I named it. Let's just double check. Yep, that's what I want the server to receive. So, and we don't want to send any variable or like a string or integer. We just want we want the server to know that I called this counter event. The next thing we're going to do is the way I designed the server is that once the server receives this event, is going to emit an event called counter with the variable that we need to display. So we need to listen for that. So what we're going to have to write, I'm just going to grab this from the article. And the event name was counter. And so we're listening for the event counter. And data array bracket 0 bracket is what we're receiving from the server. I'm going to convert that into an integer, and I'm going to store it in the variable called data received. Next thing I'm going to do is I want to display this in the label. So I'm going to do self dot label counter dot text equals data received. There will be an error because this is a string. This is an integer, and we need to put it as a string. So let's do that right now. So this should fix it. Yep, that fixes it. So we're going to actually now run and test and see if this application runs. Now that I was able to get 2 emulators to run, and I was able to get the server running up, we can test and see if the app works, and we were able to create a successful socket connection. So we got nothing here. That doesn't look good. Oh, there it is. Okay, sometimes it does lag behind. I'm not sure why, but it took a while for the app to connect. But congratulations on creating your first iOS app with sockets. And you can see that when I'm clicking on this button, it updates here, but it also syncs with the other device instantly. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to watch this, and I hope this helped.